Pressure is actually a set of expectations for a certain outcome in the grand scheme of things. Well, let me repeat that again. It's a set of expectations to achieve a certain outcome. That expectation is externally motivated or driven by, again, bosses, friends, family, peers, teachers, co-workers, whoever is around you. There's external expectation. There's also internal expectation out of yourself, and that creates pressure. Bam! Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the End-to-End Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Young Nguyen, and as my friends call me Ninja, you certainly can call me Ninja too. This is the End-to-End Podcast, the alpha to the omega, the beginning to the end, talking about life, entrepreneurship, inspiration, motivation, in this all-you-can-eat buffet called life. Our audience is growing slowly but steadily, and so I want to thank all of my supporters on the podcast for liking and sharing and commenting on all our posts. Once again, you can always follow me at End-to-End Podcast on Instagram for our little marketing snippets, but also on Spotify and YouTube and iTunes for full-length episodes. I want to remind everybody that if you find value in this podcast or any of my former podcasts, please do like, share, and comment. As our audience is building, it continues to help gain traction, and support is very much welcome in that. We don't have any sponsors on the show, so I do this on my free time, quote, free time, but just wanting to provide value because our goal is to affect the lives of billions of people across this planet in as positive a way as possible to make positive change for all of us. And so please do like, share, comment, and especially follow on all platforms. That'll be very helpful, and I'll be very appreciative of that. Today I want to talk about a topic that affects all of us. And I don't care how old you are, how young you are, your sex, your gender. It affects all of us throughout our lives in one way or another. And that is pressure. External, internal pressure. We all feel it in our daily lives, especially if you're somebody focused on success or self-achievement or wanting to get yourself to a higher level in life or accomplish a lot of goals. Pressure is always inevitably going to be there. If you're an athlete, there's always pressure to improve, pressure to perform, pressure to win. Regardless of what sport you may be in your job, vocation, there's pressure from your boss, your manager, your director, your coworkers. In school, there's pressure to perform on exams, in presentations, in public speaking. In our regular lives, there's pressure to pay the bills, for example, right? Depending on your economic status, socioeconomic status, there may be pressure to put food on the table. Life will always have pressure. But that's external pressure, right? Let me talk about also internal pressure. A lot of people put pressure on themselves to perform, right? So you have different sources of pressure that are constantly bombarding or impacting your life. Externally, from friends, family, bosses, coworkers, whatever the case may be, but then internally from yourself. Whether you're a perfectionist or not, there's always pressure to do something to improve your situation. Okay, so there's internal and external pressure. As related to that, though, let's dig a little deeper on what pressure actually is. Okay, pressure is actually a set of expectations for a certain outcome in the grand scheme of things. Well, let me repeat that again. It's a set of expectations to achieve a certain outcome. That expectation is externally motivated or driven by, again, bosses, friends, family, peers, teachers, co-workers, whoever is around you. There's external expectation. There's also internal expectation out of yourself, and that creates pressure. Okay? So in that regard, what does pressure do to us? Well, physically, it can do a lot of things that hinders performance, that hampers performance. It raises your heart rate. It makes you breathe faster. These physiological responses to these expectations. It shallows your breathing. So instead of deep, long breaths, you're doing, right? It increases your adrenaline. It causes sweatiness. It sometimes makes you shake and tremor and shiver. In some people, pressure causes your vagus nerve to fire, and sometimes it causes what's called vasodilation, so it expands all your blood vessels, and then you faint physiologically. Pressure can also affect you mentally and emotionally, cause anxiety, nervousness, sometimes depression or hopelessness when you feel like you can't handle that pressure. Causes confusion, lack of alertness, clouded thoughts. So pressure is a very serious thing that is around us all the time, and it affects our lives all the time. But remember, let me go back to pressure is a set of expectations to achieve a desired outcome. Okay, so pressure actually is something imaginary in our heads. There's an expression I like to say that I tell my athletes all the time, the ones that I coach, and I tell my team at my law firm and the businesses that I have, is that pressure can burst pipes, but pressure can also make diamonds. Okay? These are external things, external forces. And if you envision a pipe, there's a pipe, and the pressure can blow them. But if you have the chemical composition early, mostly carbon, and if you apply pressure and also heat, it can form a diamond. Okay? And that's a great analogy for what I'm going to explain right now, which is how to handle pressure. If you think of a pipe can burst under pressure. Why? Envision a pipe. A pipe is only as strong as what? The outer circumference or the material of the external parts of the pipe. But inside the pipe is very hollow. Even if it's just water or fluid going through it, it's still less dense than what is being applied outside in terms of pressure and in pipes that burst under pressure. So the pipe can only withstand the amount of pressure that the cylinder can withstand. Okay. Then what's the difference between that and a diamond? Well, a diamond, like I said, is mostly carbon, but it's carbon compact with high density under a lot of pressure. Okay, and over time, that carbon hardens into the hardest known substance on the planet, supposedly. But that hardens. And I describe these two things to contrast within ourselves how to handle pressure. And rather than bursting as a pipe, becoming hardened like a diamond. You see, the analogy is if you only focus on your facade, how you look, your appearance, the superficialness of your persona, the front that you put out to the world, that's just a hollow shell, like a pipe. It's just a shell. It's just the outer covering of your cylinder of yourself. And so if you only focus on those things, there's nothing inside to handle the pressure. And you crack and you break and you burst. Contrastingly, if you build yourself from within, okay, you build yourself from within, slowly over time, you'll begin to be able to handle pressure and sustain more and do great things to achieve your goals. And so how do we handle this pressure? Well, the first step is transforming yourself from the inside mentally. Okay? There are things you can do to build your to increase the density of your mental stamina and mental strength. Things like meditating, reading, especially these self-help books. There are millions of them that you can find in any bookstore or Amazon or online. Practice your breathing techniques. Practicing on your focus, your discipline, your consistency. Okay? Doing these things internally, taking the time to build the mental game for yourself is the first step in handling pressure or dealing with pressure. Because once you know who you are mentally or inside, that helps you build the foundation to how you present yourself externally. Remember, pressure comes from external sources, right? Other than the internal sources. But it comes from the external sources. But also doing the mental work will affect how much pressure you put on yourself, because once you come closer to understanding who you are at that moment in time, the better you can handle the internal pressure or the expectations you put on yourself. Okay? The other thing you can do is lessen the distractions, social media scrolling, gossiping with your friends or your family, worrying about what other people think of you. Switch that. Worry about what you think of yourself. Worry about who you are to yourself. The mental work required is hard. Trust me, I continue to work on it myself. The mental work is hard because you have to go deep inside in order to start solidifying that carbon, to form that diamond deep inside. Now, the second thing you can do to handle pressure is what? Physical. Okay, maintain a routine exercise regimen. And when I say exercise regimen, that you don't have to be, Mr. CrossFit, Mrs. CrossFit, or Mr. Olympia or whatever, throwing around weights. It could be as simple as just taking walks when you wake up in the morning or whenever you can according to your schedule. Any type of movement is good movement. And I'm not talking about activity. There's routine. Like when I was in medical training, we'd have our clinical intake questionnaires is, do you exercise? And people would say, well, I walk at work. No, that is activity. That's daily activity. That is not exercise. Exercise is a deliberate focus on your health, on movement for your health, not just a routine walking up and down stairs for your work. Okay, so exercise, and focused intent on exercising 15, 20 minutes a day if you're just starting out, longer if you're already kind of in shape. But the idea is building that physical stamina to help your mental stamina, right? You're trying to make it congruent between physical and mental. So having an exercise program will help you be able to handle pressure. Your diet, what you put in your body, is fuel. There's an old analogy. The gas you fill your car with is how it's going to perform. The fuel you give your body with is how your body's going to perform. So, I'm not saying you have to have a strict diet. I don't have a strict diet. But, be conscious about what you're eating and what you put into your body. Nutrition, diet, and exercise to prepare yourself physically. And so when you do these two things, or when you put in the work to do these two things, what are you essentially doing on a bigger picture to help you handle pressure? Well, you're building confidence and resiliency. Okay, confidence and resiliency to be able to know who you are, what you can handle, and how you can respond to these external and internal expectations for a desired outcome. As you work on these things over time, you see you're intensifying the density of that carbon and building out from the inside the hardness to become that diamond and handle external pressure. And so when you build this confidence, you're preparing yourself. And as you prepare yourself more, you build more confidence. And it's a vicious cycle that feeds one another on an upwards trajectory. Preparation, physically and mentally, builds confidence, which leads you to prepare more, which builds more confidence. And so when the situation happens, you're ready to handle that pressure. It's like an analogy I give my son all the time. If you have a major exam that you do not prepare for, and now it's exam day, how much pressure are you feeling? When you're sitting in class and that test is handed to you, you're sweating, you're worried, you're nervous, you have anxiety, you're confused, your mind is just racing because you didn't prepare for the test. And so that's a lot of pressure. On the flip side is if you've consistently studied, took the time, read your chapters, reviewed your notes, practice tests, practice questions, when it's time to sit down for the exam, you're cool, calm, and collected as a cat. You just chill, get the exam, go through it, turn it in, and ace the exam. It's a very, very, very simple analogy. In sports, if you're struggling with pressure to perform in high-stakes games and, championship tournaments and high-level athletics, well, if you didn't put the time in the gym with intent, with focus, with deliberateness, with consistency, if you didn't put up the shots, if you didn't put in the drills, the fundamentals, build your body, focus on the right diet, get enough rest, well, when it becomes game time for that big game, imagine the amount of pressure. In a sense, you already know that you didn't perform, you didn't prepare, right? So you already are lacking that confidence, and that leads to that pressure. I call it the pressure wall, because you're getting pushed from the outside by expectations from coaches, families, parents, and teammates. And then the internal pressure because you didn't prepare. And so that pressure chamber will collapse you, will crush you. Emotionally, psychologically, mentally, physically, it'll crush you. Contrastingly, if you know you put the time in the gym, you put the time in on your diet, you took the time to rest, you took the time for recovery and recuperation and stretching, you put the time to understand the game plan, you put the time to review film. Once it's time to perform, it's already built into your subconscious that there actually is no pressure at all. You just go out and do what you've already prepared to do. So again, life will always, always, always present pressure. Internally, externally, there's a pressure wall. Okay? To overcome this, you have to prepare yourself mentally and physically to transform from the inside. Harden up the density of you to become that diamond. A couple more things about handling pressure and transforming yourself internally to withstand it. You see, once you get to a certain level, two things happen. Two things happen in your transformation. So diamonds, they form under pressure, and it just hardens. On the flip side is, from a humanistic standpoint, the more you prepare, you actually are able to push back on that pressure, if that makes sense. You prepare and actually you expand your space, your energy, so to speak, to handle the pressure. And so then what happens? You're able to take on more pressure. Okay? You're not limited to the size of that diamond. You actually can grow that diamond of who you are. And so what happens at that point? Well, if you go back to my podcast on establishing your value, the bigger your diamond is, the more pressure you can withstand, okay, the higher your value goes up. Because what happens is that over time, there's very few people in the population that can handle super high levels of pressure. This is like beyond professional. Think of the elitist of the elite athletes. Okay? The more pressure you can handle in those pressure moments, the more value you'll have. Think of like Steph Curry who just won the NBA championship with the Warriors. People don't see it or don't know it, but those that follow know how much work and preparation time he puts into his craft. in perfecting his craft, to perform at the highest of the highest levels. Okay, to be elite at that level. And that's why before this last round of free agency, he was the highest paid NBA player. Because he put in that work to not just be a diamond, but to be a massive diamond and handle that pressure. Putting in that work then allows you, I'm sure he feels anxiety and some nervousness, but when you put yourself through that, the pressure is relieved. That pressure valve, that steam is dissipated, and you just become who you really are in that transformation. Okay? So pressure, once again, everybody feels it internally, externally, is these expectations. In reality, it's just in our imagination. But to address it and handle it, transform yourself from the inside, mentally, physically. Okay? Do not become that pipe that bursts under pressure. Be that diamond that hardens under pressure, and grow your diamond to get to the highest true value of who you are. Once again, this is the End-to-End Podcast. If you liked what you heard today, please do like, comment, share. Follow us on all major social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook, where you'll find little clips for full-length episodes. Follow us on Spotify, iTunes, and on YouTube. N2N Podcast. N2 Podcast. Once again, this is Ninja. I look forward to talking to you on the next one.
What's up, man?